Okay, and then share. Okay. Okay, so yes, so I'm just going to start with a quote about arts practice research. So what is arts practice research? Just to kind of give you a sense of this and the shift of an approach to research and how it's entered the university over the last number of years, I'm just going to quote from Smith and Dean here, who talk about the turn to creative practice is one of the most exciting and revolutionary developments to occur in the university within the last 2 decades and is currently accelerating in influence. It brings with it dynamic new ways of thinking about research and new methodologies for conducting it, a raised awareness of the different kinds of knowledge that creative practice can convey, and an illuminating body of information about the creative process. So what is unusual about this and what is particular to arts practice is that the creative work itself is seen as a form of research and it generates detectable research outputs. So really the creative practice of the practitioner and the specialist training and knowledge that they have and the processes that they engage in when they're making art can lead to specialist research insights which can then be generalized and written up as research. So this obviously means that there's quite a diverse potential and possibility for engaging in this kind of research. And I'm just going to, throughout you'll see samples of some of our current PhD arts practice candidates. One here is Simon Thompson, whose work is, his thesis title is A Creative Pedagogy Through Mask and Clown. So the approach comes from the field of practice-based research, and that would again be the understanding that if we need to understand something like a field of practice, that just the theoretical exploration of that is not maybe sufficient. So professional practitioners from the field of nursing, engineering, education and the arts, to name a few, have been engaged in research through their particular field of practice. So it's called practice-based research and may involve a research project which explores a particular question that can be responded to through practical engagement. So again, not sufficient to look at the literature in a particular area or to explore something theoretically, but to look at actual certain things like a pedagogical issue through teaching practice with a particular group, for example. So you might, in this area, it gets a little bit confusing, you might encounter other terms. One might be practice-led research or creative practice research or practice as research. Now, they actually reflect a lot of the evolution of the field, where people have kind of made distinct definitions between these different areas for particular and important reasons. So the differences are subtle, but they are significant, but we're not going to break that down today. But just to say to you that in the Irish World Academy, we use the term arts practice research because we feel that it really reflects the focus on creating a bridge between the specialist knowledge of the artist and related fields of academic inquiry and contemporary debate. Again, you'd see an image here from one of our current PhD candidates, Lisa McLaughlin. So it's a dancer, Isabella Oberlander, in one of the dance pieces that Lisa made as part of the Autonomy Project. And the thesis title was The Autonomy Project, an Arts Practice Investigation of Autonomy in a Time of Change. So in many ways, this field has often had to fight to be heard and to gain establishment, and it has really become much more established in recent years. And one of the kind of criticisms in a way is that, you know, it can often be quite subjective, or that, you know, people might think it's an easy option, but actually I always find it's quite a complicated option because the practitioner scholar really has to work across a range of different areas. And Hamilton and Jan East here have a really good quote around this. They say that practice-led researchers are developing a new hybrid genre of writing around creative practice, which combines a dual orientation and multiple perspectives, as well as a polyphony of voices: theorist, critic, historian, reporter, and reflective practitioner. So all of these hats are kind of worn by the arts practice researcher and can be quite complicated to kind of weave together in a final thesis output. So just to kind of say what the key distinctions of arts practice research are, again, very important when we're looking at other kinds of research. So one of the key points is that it acknowledges the specialist skills and field of practice of the artist as an important perspective to draw from. And of course, that's in contrast maybe to somebody who is writing from, not from the experience of being a practitioner, but writing about the field from the outside, which is of course absolutely legitimate, but doesn't have insider knowledge into what it means to make or to play a piece of music, or what it means to create a piece of visual art. it's also an area where we can explore how the artist is situated in a disciplinary legacy and how their work reflects on wider issues within the field. And so through looking at the artist's own journey, we're able to see a broader kind of snapshot of the legacy of where they have come from and where the work and the field is going to. And so they become a very important kind of source of knowledge in that way. There's also an important acknowledgement of the intersection between theory and practice. So the idea of praxis and how these are really interlinked and combined rather than separate and kind of separate activities. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. One of the other key areas is the cultural and social location of the artist's work and how this may reflect on broader social and cultural issues. So if somebody is researching in Ireland from a particular community of practice, this insight will bring a whole range of knowledge about what is happening in that community, and that gives lots of different kind of strands of knowledge. Another key important area in this is the idiosyncratic methodologies the artist may have constructed in their praxis and the value of innovation in this area. So if somebody has a particular, say for a choreographer, for example, has a particular way of making work, those methodologies might be quite innovative and interesting and translatable across other disciplines. So again, we look at the methodology as an important area of innovation, potential innovation. And then one other key distinction is the knowing through doing. So not just theoretical, but really applying certain knowledge in the making of creative work. Okay, and I guess one of the questions that's often asked about this area, well, what's the difference between undertaking research in this field and doing and just making a creative work, and how is it actually different? But for many artists, they would use, or for many PhD candidates, they would use many of the same tools to do this, but there would be certain kind of important distinctions along the way. So going from the practitioner to a practitioner researcher, one of the key things would be to specify a research inquiry at the outset, which maybe a visual artist might not particularly do as they go to paint a picture. They may just start, but whereas in this case, we would be looking at a particular research inquiry to start with. And then there's a very clear timeline for the overall project, including the various activities involved in a multi-mode inquiry. So of course, as many artists have a body of work that extends throughout their career and their lifetime, they don't necessarily punctuate that and say, this is, they might continue from one piece into the next with an idea, but within a PhD project, you'd be a bit clearer about where the project ends and how it's defined as a research project. And it's really key to build moments of critical reflection into the timeline, and so that there's ongoing checking that the research inquiry remains engaged and evidence is being collected. So again, artists may not do that particularly. They obviously would normally be quite reflective in their work, but they may not have very structured or formal opportunities to do that. And so this allows for that to be much more formalized. And then in documenting a process, capturing moments of insight. So making sure that as you move through, you're able to say, very clearly and understand where new information starts to emerge and new possibilities start to emerge. And another key aspect to this would be to locate your praxis in a lineage of similar practices. So understanding that you don't exist in a vacuum, but that your work kind of fits within a broader kind of network of ideas. And then finally here, relating the specific inquiry to broader contemporary debate. And working with through literature and reading and exposition of ideas with references. So of course, as part of this kind of research, you would do a written document that would again draw on key literature in the field. And just one other really important element about this is the kind of methodologies that are used in this kind of area. And often qualitative research methods are incorporated, and because they do allow for meaning making to emerge or experiential understandings to emerge, so they're really useful in that way. And so people find themselves, they would still use interviews or focus groups and reflective journals, perhaps autoethnographic writing, which is really the researcher writing from the situated experience of something, of a practice. And also then looking at methods that come from the artist's practice. So that can be a very key point of the methodology. And then documentation is very important. So we often talk in this field about kind of bespoke methods or bespoke methodology that's kind of constructed specifically to fit the requirements of the research. And as I said before, it can be an important area of innovation for the research in that way. And so what you see in this picture here is an interdisciplinary arts practice workshop that I led with a colleague, Dr. Alice Longley, and this was in Australia. And so we have artists, we have people from lots of different disciplines working together and shifting and exchanging their own kind of research methods and different ways of working and trying out different ideas together. And the key thing here is that they're in a studio as opposed to being behind a desk. And so trying to kind of free up some of those ideas and not only be kind of working theoretically, but actually be working in a space and being able to kind of play with ideas in that way. So what's very exciting about this approach is the possibility to kind of play creatively on some of the research training and how that happens. So now just to open up to you a little bit about the PhD arts practice. So the program is a 4-year structured program designed to meet the needs of professional performing artists who wish to engage in academic and practice-based reflection on their own artistic practice. So it involves a combination of taught modules and independent research. So I'll just show you here again, Claire Egan, one of our arts practice PhD candidates, and her title is The Art of Phrasing, an Arts Practice Examination in Traditional Irish Violin Performance. So in this program, the taught modules occur in the first 2 years of the program, with the majority taking place in year 1. So I will just go through the 3 kinds of taught modules that we have. So the first one is shared modules, and these all take place in year 1, and they're taken by all the doctoral candidates. Then we have elective modules, which are self-directed modules designed according to a needs analysis. So this is a really wonderful aspect of the program where students can take an elective and work with a particular member of staff who might have who would have a specialism in a particular area that they want to upskill in. And so they have 4 opportunities to do that throughout the course of the PhD. And so it means that they really can look at if, for example, they wanted to do something around documentation and looking at ways of filming or editing, could be one upskilling area, or they might want to do some research into ethnographic, like an ethnographic bibliography to really understand some of the literature in the field. So it can be very wide ranging what they might do in this area, and based on the particular needs of the student's research project. And then they have generic skills modules, which are coordinated by the graduate school, but again, they're selected by students in consultation with the supervisory panel. And so we have the shared modules are taught during immersion weeks that happen once a month in the first year of study. And then we have a summer program as well at the end of year 1. So the structure of the thesis is usually a 40,000 word analytical text with 2 performance outputs. So in the first year, the students will continue to work with their supervisory panel on their specific research project. And then in year 2, they also pursue an elective in each semester. So as I was saying, the thesis works between written and practical components. And this is always, I suppose, worked through with the supervisory team to see what is the most appropriate shape. But normally it does kind of have a 40,000 word text. And then the students will do 2 performances throughout the course of the PhD. So the practical component will be agreed by the student and the supervisory panel, and so in years 3 and 4 they will usually do the performances and then write up about that. And it's also very key that they have archival recordings of the work that they submit as part of the thesis as well. And again, here we have another PhD candidate, Jennifer de Bruyne, and her thesis title is Il Cruthach Shapeshifter, an autoethnographic examination of self-defined movement identity in aerial dance and aerial circus in Ireland. So the way to apply, really the most straightforward way to apply is to contact me as the program director, and also to make contact with a proposed supervisor if you have the possibility to do that. So we normally would ask people to, it's much more useful if they've kind of identified a supervisor or an area that they feel that they want to undertake the research in, and from there then they would liaise with me as the program director to develop the proposal and to move it on to the next phase. I've also put some links here So there is more information on the PhD Arts Practice on this webpage here. And there's also some interesting information available through some of these different links, which give you more of an overview of the field of arts practice, which, if it's very new for some of you, might be quite useful. And then we have some references here just at the end, and I'm just going to unshare now. Okay. So, I was just hoping if you have any questions, I'd be very, very happy to answer them. You can unmute yourself, and if you like, you can turn off the camera. Helen, would you like me to stop the recording?
Please, Jenny, if you'd like to do that. Yeah, it was a fantastic presentation, by the way.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely, Jenny, excellent, excellent.
I'm just going to figure out how to stop the recording. Great, stop recording.